Welcome back to another Muscle Minute at musclementor.net. I'm Brad Hall and this is Justin Harris, and this time we are talking about how you can eat hypercaloric or more calories than you need and not get fat, and what kind of situation that would happen.
So in the last segment we talked about, is a calorie, and I'll give an example of a way a calorie isn't necessarily a calorie. And what I do with my diet is carb cycling. So throughout the week we'll eat a hypocaloric diet where you're eating less calories than you burn, and so those calories are getting pulled from your body. We'd like all those extra calories to come from stored body fat, but they don't. A lot of them will come from stored glycogen. Your body preferentially pulls the glycogen stores and uses it for energy over fat. But as the glycogen stores get lower, the body starts having to pull more fat, and there might even be some muscle loss, another thing we're hoping to avoid. But over the course of the week, we'll get depleted in glycogen. And now say a male bodybuilder size, someone my size might be able to store 1,000 grams of glycogen throughout their body. And that's not too outrageous when you think of, you take a pound of steak, and that's, you're saying there might be 0.5 grams of carbs in that pound of steak. That makes sense. So that is about probably the range of carbs I can store in my body. So let's say over the course of the week, I deplete half of those glycogen stores, and I'm flat. And every bodybuilder knows what you look like when you're flat. Your muscles don't pop. You're not round. You look like you don't work out. So I'm 500 grams of glycogen depleted. Now, say someone my size can also eat 500 grams of carbohydrates on a calorie range that's what's the word for non-hypo, not hyper? The exact calories I burn.
Isocaloric.
Isocaloric, perfect. So someone can eat say I can eat 500 grams of carbohydrates in an isocaloric diet. And so on a high carb day, I might take in 1,000 grams of carbohydrates. Now on that day, I'm eating more calories than I burn, which seems counterintuitive on a fat loss diet. But the reason we want those glycogen stores, because it's a good energy source and it helps keep us from burning muscle. Because when you get too depleted in glycogen, your body's going to start trying to create glucose. And the way it does that is through gluconeogenesis, which means it'll start breaking down proteins and possibly even muscle tissue to create those carb stores. So we want that high carb day to restore. Some people use a refeed day. But in our example, we're doing a high carb day of 1,000 grams of carbohydrates. So 500 grams of those carbs I'm burning just in my daily metabolism. The other 500 grams are going to get stored as glycogen, hopefully. That's 2,000 calories I'm eating above the calories I'm burning that day. So I'm eating a diet I should be getting fat on. But the reason a calorie isn't a calorie is because I'm eating those extra calories from carbohydrates in a glycogen depleted state where those extra calories are going to be stored in the body. Anytime you eat extra calories, they're going to be stored in the body. We're setting the example where we're eating a specific kind of calorie, so it gets stored in the body as glycogen. So I'm storing those extra 2,000 calories in the body, just as thermodynamics says I will, but I'm storing them in the muscle as glycogen.
Right.
And that's a way where proper macronutrient arrangement, proper food choices is much more important than just a calorie is a calorie. Because if you took that approach on a refeed day where you said just straight a calorie is a calorie, and I ate a bucket of lard or 2,000 calories of extra lard, I'm going to store those 2,000 calories the exact same way I did on my high carb day, only there's no carbohydrates in the lard. So what I'm storing those things most likely are, as I'm storing them, as fat. And that's where thermodynamics still reigns, but where you have to take into account the different ways the body stores energy. It stores energy, protein as muscle tissue. It stores carbohydrates as glycogen. It stores fat as fat. And so that's a proper diet approach will allow you to manipulate and stick within the laws of thermodynamics, but allow you to eat hypercaloric on certain days in a way that allows you to be more effective in your fat loss on your hypocaloric days. And in our example, I had that hypercaloric day. Now in caveman, our bodies still work in caveman terms. Our bodies think, okay, we've eaten few calories multiple days in a row. There must not be enough woolly mammoths to kill. There must not be enough berries to pick or nuts to find. So we need to start dropping our metabolism any way we can. And like we talked about in the last segment also, one way our body stores nutrients that actually burns calories is muscle. And so in a starvation state, your body says, well, we're burning too many calories, there's enough food to eat, let's shed some of those calories. The calories it's going to want to shed, the energy source it's going to want to shed is muscle. And so that's why you see when people eat extremely low carbohydrate, extremely low fat diets for extended periods of time without that carb fluctuation or calorie fluctuation, they start burning off their muscle tissue. So in our case, what we did is to prevent that, we loaded up the glycogen. We ate more calories than we burned, but instead of storing fat, we stored glycogen. And we go back to our hypocaloric state the rest of the days, We have the increased energy reserves in our muscles to use to prevent gluconeogenesis, which is breakdown of muscle tissue, and to fuel our training and to prevent a slowdown in metabolism.
One important thing to note is that we're talking about bodybuilders who are training. They're training, each body part, and so glycogen is stored strictly in the muscles, like Justin said, and it can be, it can. There's some that's stored in the liver, and yes, that's used first. But if you're training hard and you're training heavy, then that glycogen is being burned out from the muscles that you're using. And an important thing to remember is that glycogen can only be burned from that muscle or used from a muscle that you're using. So if you are sedentary and you're thinking like, well, it's been a couple days, I've been dieting, my glycogen's probably used. It's probably not used. It's probably you lost water, you lost, some fat or something else, but your glycogen stores are probably fine. They only get depleted if you're training those muscles.
And that's a really important point. If you'll notice the old style, and I always picture like my mom's generation of women, when they would diet, they would just starve themselves. And the difference between a figure competitor and the way they look and the way our mother's generation looked when they would starve themselves is that exact point. The figure competitors are training and they're building muscle, preserving muscle. Our mother's generation would probably not really lose much body fat. They would lose a lot of body weight, mostly by they lose a little bit of fat stores, but they lose a lot of muscle stores. And that's why you see a lot of the older models that actually, really thin and small. I'm thinking 50s and 60s before weight training came into vogue, or cardio or aerobics, and they all kind of pudgy and squishy, as opposed to what a weight trained female would look like at the same body weight range.